Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CEDH. I know people say all the time that this format is the same 50 cards with slight variations, but today we actually get to show off some off-meta picks, and some really cool cards that you might not have thought of. But I'll leave it there. Also, I'll be at Commander Sealed in a few weeks. I'll have my own booth selling sweet mtga apparel, so be sure to swing by and check it out. Mention the word Riel and get a 10% discount off your order, so definitely come by. Starting us off today is Steven on Cedh, Master Thopterist. Mono Blue Artifacts is here, so move over Urza, there is a new sheriff in town. Instead of one Mega Construct, this deck aims to flood the board with an armory of Thopters, which can be used for cards in the late game. Next up is Jason on Najeela. This is a 5-color Thassa's Consultation list that backdoors into an infinite creatures and combats combo with Najeela, who even just left alone can amass a horde of warriors to take their opponents out. In the third spot, we have John on Rona, Herald of Invasion. This is a Dimir combo list aiming to use the normal Dimir things of countering, drawing spells, reanimating, and winning the game, with Rona being one source of card advantage and a combo piece. And bringing up the rear is Nick on Ureni. Teamer Dragons is here to party, aiming for food chain lines while relying on just casting powerful dragons to pressure your opponents and gain value.
Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board.
Steven starts off the game with a snow-covered island into a mana vault. Jason has an ancient tomb, but passes it there. John shocks in a water grave, also casting a mana vault. Nick just has a tap stomping grounds as he passes it there. Steven has another snow-covered island and casts his Commander Cedh. Jason plays out a plateau and takes 2 to cast his Commander Najeela. John has a tapped Undercity Sewers as land for turn, choosing to keep the card on top from the Surveil trigger. Nick untaps and shocks into Steam Vents, tapping 2 for a Talisman of Curiosity. Steven will take 1 from his tap vault and has yet another snow-covered island. He then casts a Chrome Mox and makes a Thopter off the cast from Cedh, with Steven then imprinting a paradoxical outcome underneath the Mox. He taps 4 and casts the Indomitable. He makes another Thopter as the vehicle resolves, and Steven then heads to combat, sending Cedh at John for 1. Although fearing the card advantage, Jason free casts a Deadly Rollick to exile a creature and end Steven's turn there. Jason has a City of Brass's land for turn, and takes 3 to cast Samut. He then heads to combat and sends both Najeela and Samut at Nick, making 2 warriors, which also head Nick's direction. There are no effects as Nick takes 7 and Jason draws 3. John plays out a Shipwreck Marsh and casts a Dark Deal, although he holds priority to flash an Orcish Bowmaster on top of the wheel. The Orc resolves and on ETB pings a warrior, with the Dark Deal then resolving, and everyone pitches their hand, drawing 1 less card.
Of Will and Hullbreaker Horror.
I'm pitching an Ashnod's Altar, a Scalding Tarn, and a Flooded Stream.
Wait, you could have
I could have Force of Will, but my hand is crap.
Yeah.
And while it might not have been a time twister, John will still get 13 Bowmaster triggers, which will take out the remaining creatures and ping Jason for the rest. Nick has a Volcanic, and unfortunately his hand didn't get much better, as once again he passes the turn. Steven will take another 1 off his vault and plays out a snow-covered island, tapping 3 for Heuristic Study. Jason plays out a Verdant Catacombs as land and then casts a Mox Diamond. He'll pay the 1 and pitches the land as he passes with mana open. John also takes 1 off his vault as he plays out an Underground River. He'll cast a Chrome Mox and doesn't pay the 1. Steven draws, Jason is pinged for 1 as John then imprints a Sir Conrad, following that up with his Commander Rona. There is another Heuristic trigger as Jason responds with a Bowmaster of his own. He pays 1 and takes out the first Bowmaster off the ETB, with John now deciding to pay the 1. Next up is combat, as the now 15 power Orc army heads at Jason, who chumps with his own 1/1. Nick has a Forest's land for turn and casts a Mana Vault. He pays the 1 and follows it up with a Hellkite Courser. This time, Nick can't pay the tax, as Steven draws, and Jason pings Nick for 1. The Courser then resolves, and on ETB puts Ureni into play, whose own ETB finds a Terror of the Peaks. But Nick isn't done yet, as he then moves to combat and sends the hasty Ureni at Jason, with Nick using the attack trigger to find an ancient copper dragon, who triggers the Terror of the Peak, absolutely blasting the Bowmaster as well. Jason then takes the hit, as Ureni is then bounced to the command zone. Steven will then untap and takes one. He has another Snow Island and chooses to recast his commander Cedh, with Jason at end step cracking his fetch for a Savannah. Jason untaps, draws, and passes it there, as John on his end step casts the Vampiric Tutor. He doesn't pay the 1 as Steven draws and the tutor resolves, putting a card on top. John then draws his tutor card and is hoping to fuel the table with some more interaction, as he windfalls. There's a Rhystic trigger, but responding to that, Jason casts his own Vampiric Tutor. There's another Rhystic trigger, but now it's Nick's time to respond, as he casts a Force of Negation, pitching a Neoform. Steven will get the draw, as Jason then casts a Flusterstorm, targeting the Force. Steven draws as the Force is countered, Steven then draws again off the Vampiric Rhystic, and Jason goes searching. He finds a card to put on top, as Steven then draws off the original Rhystic. And while Steven did debate using a Chain of Vapor, he was more worried about tapping out with everyone getting a full new grip. So he has no other responses, as the table then discard, and this time draw 8 cards.
Absolutely terrifying. Please tell me you're not windfalling and passing the turn.
No. I haven't even played a land yet.
Please tell me you would not do that to us.
It would be fun. It'd be really funny, but...
John then taps Rona to loot, discarding a Carrion Feeder, as he then plays out an Ancient Tomb as land return, tapping out to cast a Rhystic of his own. Steven draws as he gives John an offer he can't refuse, gaining John 2 treasures, to which he then follows that up with the Dark Ritual. Steven draws once again.
We are not paying our taxes. We are not good players here. Nah, I don't want to pay taxes. Not. I'm going to let it keep going.
John then casts a Grim Servant. Steven draws as the creature resolves, and John searches out a Demonic Consultation, but passes it there. Nick takes 1 from his vault and plays out an Ancient Tomb of his own. He'll then take 2 to cast a Destiny Spinner, and give another draw to Steven. The Spinner resolves as he then triggers his terror to shoot down the Grim Servant, following that up with a Goldspan Dragon. Steven draws as Nick then uses his terror to take out Cedh once again. Combat is next, as Nick makes a deal with Jason to not swing his way in case he had tutored up some removal off the vamp. Jason agrees as Nick sends the team at Steven, with Nick making 1 treasure off the attack. There are no effects as Steven then takes the hit for 15, with Nick triggering the Ancient Copper Dragon and rolling a 9. He now has 10 treasures total, as on his second main casts his commander Ureni. He pays for the Rhystic as the commander resolves and domes Steven for another 7. Ureni then ETBs and, unfortunately for Nick, whiffs the trigger. Nick then casts a 1 ring, Steven will draw as Nick then taps it to also draw. And with his Goldspan basically doubling up his treasures, he then casts a Niv Mizzet Draco Genius. Steven draws as Nick then uses the terror to kill Rona and finally ends his turn there. Steven untaps, takes 1, and plays out another snow-covered island. He casts a Mox Diamond and pitches a Misty, as for 5 casts a Forsaken Monument. The artifact resolves as he then follows that up with a Basalt Monolith, and now John is forced to respond, as he casts his Tutor Demonic Consult. Steven will get a draw off the Rhystic and then fires off a Force of Will, exiling a March of Swirling Mist to do so, with the Basalt actually resolving. Steven then can tap the artifact for 4 colorless and then pays 3 to untap it. However, Nick does now have a response, as he Bosejus the Monolith. And unfortunately, Steven does not have a response, as the Boseju destroys the artifact and he grabs out a snow-covered island. Also, at this point, we do remember he needed to gain life off the cast of the Grim Monolith. Steven then casts a Mox Amber into a Spellskite, but passes it there. Jason has a Bloodstained Mire as land for turn, as he casts a Lothos, and pays the 1. He then taps 3 for his own Rhystic, as Jason then cracks his fetch for a Taiga, and uses the land to pay for the Rhystic. John takes 1 off his tap vault, as he plays out a tap Mistrise Village, as land for turn, and then casts a Baleful Mastery, targeting the Terror of the Peaks. He will take 3 to target it, and has Steven draw off the alternate cast. he will pay for the wrist stick and then ends his turn recasting his commander Ronas, to which he'll pay for Steven's wrist stick but give a card and a treasure to Jason. He then heads to combat and sends the orc army at Nick, who totally forgot he had protection as he chumps with his Hellkite Courser. Nick will then untap and takes one from his vault and one from his ring. He can then tap the ring to draw 2 and then heads to combat and sends 15 at Steven, with 7 heading at Jason. Nick has 2 attack triggers as he makes a treasure, although realizing he is at a low life total, Jason will respond to the Ureni trigger with the swords, to which Nick quickly flusterstorms it and pays for both wrist sticks. The sword is then countered and Steven then draws off the sword's wrist stick, with Nick then looking at the top 8 from the Ureni trigger and revealing an old gnawbone. Damage then happens as Hidden makes 25 treasures off the connect, and in his excitement forgets about his ancient copper dragon, with Nick on his second main cracking 2 treasures for double Izzet mana, which then lets him spend 2 of it on Niv Mizzet to ping a player and draw another card, to which Nick does to ping Jason down and draw himself 8 cards, with Nick then Whirly Tutoring for an Eternal Witness. He can ping, draw, and cast to get his discarded Hullbreaker Horror back, which will then let him loop his Mana Vault and Talisman for infinite colorless. He then adds an Arcane Signet for colored mana, and can then activate Niv to ping John down, winning Nick the game. Game review. Well, were they just lost in the sauce? Or was there something new that piqued your interest? I love seeing people try new things, and if not for those Bowmaster, this game would have been dramatically different. Both Cedh and Najeela got off to great starts, and it was really cool also to see the Forsaken Monument come out, not only as a combo piece, but as a great buff to the Thopter army. With a big shout out also to Hellkite Courser. I know it sees love in a Tali list, but man is this card a house, especially to double trigger Ureni. Thanks to everyone that joined for the game, and before everyone leaves, I want to thank our special Patreon members, Flyfox and Holy Septic, for their support of the channel, along with all of our other Patreon supporters as well. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.